Hi and welcome to another gaming video. Yeah, a gaming video. And today I want to talk about physical media. So I have been an advocate of physical media. I love having a disc or a game or even like a DVD or a film to hold in my hand. I think it's yours. I'm not a big fan of this whole sort of new digital download. Everything being tied to an account. I mean, it has its bonuses. If your console breaks, you can just re-download it on a new one. But I prefer physical media. I prefer having discs and games to hold in my hand. These are great and they sit on my shelf and they look pretty. But physical media isn't without its drawbacks, and there's been a lot in the news recently about Warner Brothers. Some of their early DVDs from sort of around the 2000 mark have already started to suffer from disc rot, and it goes way back further than that. Vinyl, it warps. VHS tapes, they wear out. But I don't think anybody really paid much attention to sort of discs. I mean, the newest thing is that Blu-ray might only have about a 20-year shelf life. And that isn't good news for people who like physical media. So these are games that are released on a Blu-ray disc. Some of them go back to sort of PS3 when Blu-ray was first introduced. So that is getting on for 20 years. Some of these PS3 games may not be playable in the next few years, and it's all about ideal conditions. If you're not very careful with your games, you leave them out of cases, they get scratched, or if you leave them in the sun, then it's not a good thing. But even under ideal conditions where they're handled properly, they're kept in their cases, they're kept in a cool, sort of dark environment. Just the inherent nature of physical media, what they're made out of, the chemicals that are used to make them, can just, well, they will degrade after time, and not as long as people think. 20 years for a disc. I mean, that might sound like a long time, but you are talking PS3. That's 20 years, give or take. Some early games like 2006, 2007, that is almost 20 years. In 5 to 10 years, doesn't mean that things like PS3 games are just going to be, well, you're not going to be able to play them. And that is real bad news for people like myself who likes a physical disc. I mean, I've got PS3 games here, PS4 games, and PS5 games. We are now in 2025, so by 2045, could your PS5 discs be unplayable? Physical sales are down by about 80%. 80% of people, or 80% of game sales, are bought digitally. Then it has its problems. I don't like the fact that all of your games are stored or owned by somebody else. I don't care how much you pay for them or what agreement you do. Somewhere in that agreement that you sign up to when you create an account gives them the right to withdraw your purchases and your games because you don't own them. You technically rent them from the company. If their servers go down, if the console stops working, there's too much around digital media that I don't like. But I'm not also keen on the whole, oh my god, my physical media could be, well, it's not going to last that long. And obviously, I think this is a little bit on the negative side. I mean, any media is gonna fail at some point. How long that is, I mean, this 20 years for Blu-ray is a little bit, I think, well, there are lots of media that is still going strong. Vinyl, VHS, as long as you look after it and as long as you sort of are careful with it. I've still got VHS box sets. I've still got DVDs. These discs here, sort of for this era, Sega Saturn, which is mid-90s, the Wii, which is mid-2000s, but these still play absolutely fine. I've not had any issues with them. Even things like these are cartridges, and yeah, I'll class them all as cartridges. What kind of shelf life does a cartridge have? This is Tetris. It's almost 40 years old, and it still plays fine. It's the same with like Mega Drive games. You got this cartridge connector on the end. How long before these start to fail? Even going forward, I wouldn't class these as cartridges as such. These are more sort of like a memory card style, although they're sort of mini modern cartridges, I suppose. But how long before these wear out? The pins on the back can start to wear, even if you don't actually use the game. How long before just the chemicals and the inherent nature of these components fail, and then your game is no longer playable? Even this one, which is it's a cartridge, I suppose. It looks more like a memory card. There again, you've got things like SD cards and people who save their media on things like that. How long before all of these disappear? But it was just a bit. It's been in the news. It kind of triggered me a little bit that there is a possibility in the next. Let's give it as long as possible, 5 to 10 years. That games that are released on a Blu-ray disc, as well as films, etc., are just going to be, well, non-usable, and not through. I mean, look at the state of these. These have not been looked after very well. But you look after them, you put them away, you're very careful with them, you store them correctly, but you cannot fight the fact that these have got materials and chemicals which degrade over time, and as careful as you are, it makes no difference. At some point, all of these and these and even possibly these are all going to be useless, and that means what? You're going to lose all of your games collection. That then going to end up just looking like pretty shelf pieces without being the ability to play them. What options do you have? Well, not many. I mean, you could possibly create digital copies of them. That's a lot of work for a lot of different systems and a lot of different connections, I suppose. I mean, with discs, it's easy. Stick them in a disc drive, a DVD drive, Blu-ray drive, and create rips and have these sort of digital copies of your physical games. But when it comes to cartridge-based ones, that's a little bit more difficult. Why should you have to? But if you don't, are you going to lose your physical collection? It's the same with films. Are we going to find that DVDs and Blu-rays, they're going to fail? There's going to be some of these games, some of these films, some of this whatever, it is going to be lost because of no preservation. Yeah, it's a little worrying. I've got this nice selection, and this is just a small selection of my physical media, physical games and physical films. Well, this all could disappear, be unusable. I mean, it's made of plastic, so physically this can sit on my shelf for as long as it likes. But if I was to pick up a Sega Saturn in 5-10 years time, would this disc be playable on it? And from the recent news and the recent sort of stories I've been hearing, it doesn't look like Blu-ray has got the shelf life of other systems. Maybe not. Maybe they will just be shelf pieces and paperweights, and whatever media, music, film, game is on these physical discs will be lost. It's down to digital preservation to keep a lot of these aging platforms alive. It's worth checking. Go and have a look at your discs. Make sure, first of all, that they haven't start to suffer from disc rot. Make sure that they're all nice and clean and pristine, and store them in optimum conditions, just to make the longevity of these last as long as possible. Don't want to sort of make this as a sort of a worrying video, but it is something that if you're a physical collector, you really need to think about. link, like, subscribe, enjoy.